for bringing me in. All right. What do you expect from a hostage negotiator, huh? Is the guy supposed to be funny? A funny hostage negotiator, ha. So I'll tell you my favorite hostage negotiation joke, because local police officers really like this. How do you get a one-armed FBI hostage negotiator out of a tree? Wave to him. Now, cops really like that because it makes the FBI look stupid. So that would be the way I always warmed up the group. But then the next question you might have is, how do you take a hostage negotiator? Who takes him hostage, right? Well, I'll tell you who does. My mother. Like, when my mother calls me on the phone and she says, I'd like to come visit you for your birthday if you'd like me to, I mean, exactly what kind of an answer? How many options do I have at that point in time? Yeah, she's got me. I'm kind of done. And it's why actually, my mother is Joyce Voss. I'm the son of Richard and Joyce Voss from a small town in Iowa. And my parents were very blue-collar, hard-working, small Midwestern business people. Very blue-collar, very direct. And one of my favorite jokes is, what's the difference between an Iowa mom and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist. Like there's no negotiation with my mother. So in my role as the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator, I was responsible for any American that gets kidnapped overseas, not in illegal detention, but somebody taken by a criminal or terrorist group. And for a while, Haiti was a revolving door of kidnappings. Before the earthquake in Haiti, kidnappings there constantly, all the time. And interestingly enough, kidnappers are commodities dealers. They're really just tough, hard-nosed businessmen. And the commodity, unfortunately, what horrifies the rest of us is human beings. And they have an expectation of price, and they have an expectation of how long it's going to take them to get that price. And it's different for every country, and it's even different depending upon the commodity. And so most of the people that are getting kidnapped in Haiti are not, they don't know they're grabbing Americans. They're dual nationals. One of the things that I unabashedly love about the United States is a lot of people don't realize there's only, I think, one other country in the entire world that you're a citizen if you're born here. I grew up taking that for granted. Figured if you're born in a country, you just naturally deserve to be a citizen. And the United States is unique in that regard, and one of the reasons that I think this is a great country. Not that there aren't other great countries, and not that the United States doesn't have its own problems. But so consequently, because of that, a lot of dual national Haitians, because a pregnant Haitian mother realizes the first great gift that she can give her child is to find her way into the United States so the child is born in the U.S. and is an American citizen. So I get a call one day because a 12-year-old boy has been grabbed in Haiti. And it's a typical Haitian kidnapping where what they were doing at the time, they're gonna carjack a car that has at least 2 people in it. Because then you get the car, you get a person to ransom, and you let somebody go to go scare up the money. And it's a great business model. They get paid every time. So this 12-year-old boy gets grabbed, and he's a dual national, although his father's not an American citizen, he is. His father knows that the United States government is supposed to help him. So he goes to the State Department, and he says, my son was kidnapped. I need your help. And he said, okay, well, the FBI is going to be there to help you. So he goes home, and I don't know exactly what he imagined in his mind. I expect it was something like after he's told the FBI is going to help him, he figures about 20 minutes later he's going to hear on a front door, and he's going to open the door, and he's going to see Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Instead, about 20 minutes later, he gets a call from some guy in Washington, D.C. named Chris Voss. And he literally says to me, you're in Washington, D.C., how you going to help me? Now, how much time have I got before this guy hangs up? Moments, right? Now, I have been in similar situations in other countries where I have trotted out my resume and found out that I'm the only person that's impressed with it. I'll go on and on and on. Because your work history, what you've done, correlates loosely with whether or not you know what's going on. People hope that you know what's going on, but the more important thing is, do you really understand the problem? And if you understand the problem, it doesn't matter what your work history is. So I say to him, all right, here's the deal. Haitian kidnappers are not killing their victims. Exactly why that is I don't know, because Haitian criminals are killing each other at the drop of a hat. They'll shoot each other for no reason whatsoever and move on, but they're not killing kidnap victims. Now, today is Thursday, and Haitians love to party on Saturday night. So if you do what I tell you to do and you follow what my strategy is, we'll have your son out by the end of the day tomorrow or early Saturday morning. He said, tell me what you want me to do. He never asked me if I'd ever been to Haiti, which I haven't. I hadn't then, nor have I ever been since. He didn't ask me how many kidnappings I worked in Haiti. He didn't ask me what my resume was. He didn't ask me one single question. As soon as I showed him that I completely understood what it was that he was faced with, of course, then I had to come up with a strategy that made sense afterwards. But when you can look at someone and completely diagnose the problem, there's something that happens on an understanding, and it's what I refer to as a that's right moment, or in many cases, it's an internal that's right moment. So one of the things that I want to share with you guys that I see as a big downfall in negotiations across the world, if you will, is we're all hostage to yes. We love yes. We love it. Love, love, love it. It's been named as maybe one of the most beautiful words in the English language. And there's an interesting story that John Lennon first began to fall in love with Yoko Ono because he went to this art exhibit that she had put together where you climbed over obstacles and you went under things and you climbed up this rickety ladder, and at the ladder you looked through a telescope, and tiny little letters on a far wall was the word yes. Because we love it. And it seems to be the goal of negotiation. And the chapter that sold my book to the publisher, which was different than anything they'd ever seen, was, at the time, the working title of the chapter was, yes is the last thing you want to hear. The last thing you want to hear. Now, how could that be? If we love this word so much, how could yes be the last thing you want to hear? Well, I'll ask you, what goes through your mind when you hear someone on the other end of the phone say, have you got a few minutes to talk? You immediately tighten up. Problem with yes is there are three kinds of yeses. There's commitment, confirmation, and counterfeit. And people are always trying to lead us into commitment yes with a series of confirmation yeses. May come up with a yesable proposition. I mean, there's even a theory behind it that has an academic study behind it that supports it. It's called mere agreement, and it's the more times you get somebody to say yes to the small things in a conversation, the more likely you are to get the big yes. So seriously, if I call you on the phone and I say, would you like to make more money? Do you immediately go, yes, of course. Thank God you called. I've been waiting for you. No, just like, have you got a few minutes to talk? You know that's going someplace. And anytime you hear about an academic study that backs up any philosophy, take a look at the data and find out where it came from, and then decide whether or not that applies to you, whether or not you want to buy into that theory. And the mere agreement study is based on all simulated negotiations. People playing roles in circumstances that they were not actually playing, and in these simulated negotiations, they found that people said yes more often in a conversation, were more likely to come to an agreement. And I will tell you, as a professor of negotiation, and I'm very lucky to be here at Marshall now. I mean, it's one of the fortunate things that I have ever fallen into. This is a fantastic place to teach. I was walking across the campus this morning thinking about how lucky I am to be here. My students come into class, if I give them an assigned negotiation, they think they got to make a deal. So when you think you got to make a deal in a role that you're not used to, you're probably going to make that deal. And that's why that works under these circumstances. And I ask you again, when the phone rings and a voice on the other end says, have you got a few minutes to talk? You begin to worry about what saying yes is going to commit you to. Problem with have you got a few minutes to talk is it's actually 4 questions in one. First of all, it's, if I have a few minutes, do I want to talk to you? If I have a few minutes and I want to talk to you, do I want to talk about what you want to talk about? There's not a man alive, or woman for that matter, who hasn't gotten a call from her significant other on the phone, his or her significant other, and a voice said, can we talk? And the man says to himself, well, I know I like talking to you. Somehow I know I don't want to talk about what you want to talk about. So then after that, the next question is, if I have a few minutes to talk and I want to talk to you, how long is a few minutes? Like I've got colleagues, I've got friends. They call me on the phone, it's 45 minutes. My next younger sister calls me on the phone when she's got a 45-minute drive in front of her, and she wants me to listen to her for 45 minutes when she talks. Have you got a few minutes to talk? I've got a gentleman who's an attorney who will think up everything he wants to say, have a very direct agenda, and when he goes through the conversation, have you got a few minutes to talk? It's 45, and it's him talking and me listening. And then finally, the last issue that you ask yourself is, if I have a few minutes to talk and I want to talk to you, how do I get off the phone? Like, what if you have 10 minutes? But this occurs with each and every yes. And I really just, it was staring me in the face for the longest time. When I was working on my book, one of my colleagues said, all right, so Chris, you as an FBI hostage negotiator, how'd you get hostage takers to say yes? And it was the only question he ever asked me that thoroughly stumped me, because I thought for the longest time, I thought, we never did. And we had developed an instinct that yes makes people defensive. Yes is worried about what they're committed to. People, and then the problem is, if you try to get somebody to say yes, it triggers all these questions in their mind, like, what am I letting myself in for? Where is this going? What's going to happen? I mean, even if the confirmation yes is utterly true, people don't want to say yes to it. One of my students in my class here at Marshall, I have him write papers. He's at a hotel in the off season, and he knows in the off season they discount the regular rooms, but they don't discount the bungalows, even though the bungalows in this hotel are largely empty. So he wants a discounted bungalow. And so he goes up to the manager, knowing that this is just a fact, it just happens to be true. And he says, so it's the off season, right? And the guy doesn't want to say yes to that, because he doesn't know where it's going, but he knows it's going someplace. And we get beat with this over and over and over again in all cultures across the world, where we become like battered children. And anybody tries to get you to say yes to anything, you think you're going to get hit again, even if they're trying to hug you, and you're going to be defensive. This is probably the single biggest, worst problem and habit that I see people come across on a regular basis. Because, you know, you're taught to ask good questions. I promise you, when you start asking questions of anybody today, to try to just assume that you're on safe ground, if you write those questions down in advance, you'll find that yourself asking them a series of questions where the answer is always yes. And you never do that unless you're going somewhere with it. And this is kind of the crazy thing about it, because we love hearing it, and at the same time, every time somebody tries to get you to say yes, you'll get defensive, every time. And we don't see this. So the issue is, if you're listening to this crazy guy, if you want to listen to this guy, Voss, this hostage negotiator, all right, so you don't want me to say yes. You don't want to get people to say yes. What do you want them to say? I'll tell you what it is. I'll make a contrast. It initially won't seem that significant to you. When I tell you what the solid gold answer is, you are not going to see the heavens open up. You're not going to hear angels sing. You're not going to hear birds chirp. But you'll realize that that's what it is. And the thing that you want people to say instead of yes is, that's right. And ask yourself, anytime you've been watching something on TV and you knew that it was totally and completely the truth, you almost jump up and you'll point at the TV and you'll say, that's right, because that's when you pronounce someone as being completely the truth. And the first time we really found this out, like I said, it stared at me in the face for a long time. I'm working a kidnapping in the Philippines. An American named Jeffrey Schilling's been grabbed, $10 million ransom demand. Person on the other side is a stone-cold killer, a guy named Sabaya, and Sabaya is as bad as they come. He's a raping, head-chopping, sociopathic killer. And he's got Schilling, and there's $10 million that he's asking, but it's not a ransom, it's for war damages, for 500 years of oppression, from the Spanish to the Japanese to the Americans. It's everything that's happened in the south of the Philippines and all the harm that's been inflicted on them by all the colonial powers over the years. And it's put together in such a way that makes $10 million seem like a bargain. And we can't get these guys off the ransom demand. But while we're working on it, we realize that no matter what kind of logic, like what has Jeff Schilling got to do with what the Japanese did? What has Jeff Schilling got to do with what the Spanish did? Doesn't matter. So I'm coaching a negotiator, and really what I did around the world was coach negotiations. I can coach negotiations anywhere. Drop me in a country, and inside of 12 hours, let me find a negotiator that'll listen to what I say. I can get up to speed immediately in that industry. If I find somebody that's open to being coached. I don't need to know the culture. I don't need to know the industry. I know negotiations. People say you coach negotiations all over the world. How many languages do you speak? Barely one. And I got this bizarre accent that's a combination of small-town Midwestern boy and New York City guy. And that is a strange combination, believe me. Nobody knows where I'm from. So I tell the guy that I'm coaching in the Philippines, I say, hey, and we're about 4 months into this. We can't get Sabaya to budge a dime on a 10 mil. And we can't even get him to call it ransom. Because we got a bargaining system that I know that you put me into a bargaining situation, I have a systematic approach that's based on science and psychology, and I will knock a price down every single time as soon as we go into bargaining. We can't get them into the bargaining. So I say, today's goal is you're going to get Sabaya to say that's right. You're going to fully summarize everything and how he feels about it, almost as if it sounds like you're supporting him. Almost as if it sounds like you're on his side. And you're going to say it so fully and so completely that he's not going to have any choice other than to say that's right. I put this in a document. I give it to the ambassador because we can't do anything without the ambassador's permission. We get Sabaya on the phone 2 days later. My guy that I'm coaching says, you know, you're not asking for ransom for Schilling. You're asking for war damage because of the 500 years of oppression, from the Spanish to the Japanese to the Americans. And it's been unjust, and it's been wrong, and it seems to be completely unfair. And you're not even Filipinos in the south of the Philippines. You're Moros. You're completely different ethnicity that they don't even recognize. And your fishing rights have been violated, and the harm that's been inflicted on the area has just been completely unjust and unfair. And he goes on and on and on. And then there's dead silence. Sabaya says, that's right. And they wait for a few moments, and they agree to talk again in a couple days. And we go from $10 million to zero in one conversation. Sabaya never mentioned ransom again after that. Not one dime. Now, I didn't expect it to go completely away. I thought it would drop substantially. I thought it would change his characterization. And one of the secrets to negotiation is never be so sure of what you want that you wouldn't take something better. Well, if you're trying to get yes, you're focused on what you want, and it means you're going to miss something better. And if you're focused on that's right, you now open up the possibilities because you're not narrowing in on a specific goal. So we completely put the terrorists in a state of disarray. About 2 months later, Schilling walks away. The local farmer sees him. They fly him to Manila. They have this big press conference. The Philippine military claims they rescued him. Said this daring raid. We shot all these terrorists who were mortally wounded. They crawled off into the bushes. That's why we don't have any bodies. They flew Schilling out. I'm back in the Philippines about 3 weeks later on. I connect on another kidnapping. I connect with my guy. He says, you're not going to believe who called me. All right, who? Sabaya. They still had each other's cell phones. Sabaya didn't know my guy by his real name. Figured he was either military or the police. Sabaya calls him and he says, have you been promoted? I don't know what you said to me on the phone. Whatever it was at work, they should promote you. He hangs up. In any negotiation, you want to leave your counterpart, no matter what the outcome. In Sabaya, we thoroughly beat him. Sabaya called him up because he still respected him, was still willing to talk to him. Remember the Robert De Niro movie with Billy Crystal, Analyze This? Where De Niro goes, you got a gift, you. That's Sabaya doing that with the guy that I was coaching. So how do we put this in our daily lives? I'm coaching my son in football. He's a lineman. Lineman hit everything. He's playing college ball. He gets moved from lineman to linebacker. Linebackers are not supposed to hit everything. They're supposed to get out of the way. They're supposed to move off to the side. They're supposed to push people away instead of smashing everything they see and then tackle the ball carrier. My son, the lineman, won't do this. And the coach is telling them over and over and over again, because you know what people tell you, here's what you're seduced by, and it's even worse than yes. Here's what you think you have agreement, and it's the worst possible answer. You're right. People did this to you in your job 8 times this week. You had a conversation with someone, you were trying to get something worked out, and he looked you in the eye and he said, you're right. You're right is what you say to somebody when you're trying to preserve the relationship and not do what they say. You just want them to shut up. And you guys do this on a regular basis. Somebody in your job is after you over and over and over again, and they won't leave you alone, and you want them to leave you alone, so you look them in the eye and you say, you're right. They get this happy look and they run away. And they leave you alone. You know who the world's greatest practitioners of your right are? Husbands. So I'm coaching my son and his head coach. We're trying to get him to change the way he's playing football. And every single time he looks at us and he says, what does he say? You're right. And we're like, of course, that's right. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. And then we'd leave him alone. And then he'd go back to the same thing the very next day. So one day I say to myself, I got to get through this kid. And I begin to see, I'm asking, how does he look at this? And I say, you know, you think it's unmanly to dodge a block. You think getting out of the way of somebody who's trying to hit you makes you a coward. Understand with this approach, it almost sounds like I'm supporting him, right? And he looks at me and he says, that's right. And he started pushing people away the next day and dodging blocks. Girl in one of my classes, pharmaceutical salesperson, she's trying to sell a hot new drug to a doctor on her territory. He's not having it. She sold him a lot of other stuff. This is the hot new drug. He's not giving her the time of day. She gets an appointment. He's multitasking. He's on his phone. He's on his computer, whatever. He's not paying attention. She listens to the That's Right lecture in my class. She goes out to see him the next day. One goal in mind, going to get a That's Right out of him. Not get a yes, not try to make the sale. One thing only, get a That's Right. She sits down with him and she says, you know, you're not just going to buy the latest drug from some pharmaceutical company who's just trying to maximize its profits. They're a big company maximizing their profits. They don't care about your patients. You, on the other hand, they're not just your patients. They're people to you. You feel responsible for their lives. They matter to you. You're taking care of them and consequently their entire families. Their future's in your hands, and you're not going to buy the hottest drug from some pharmacy who's trying to maximize his profits. She said he turned and looked at her as if he had seen her for the first time. And he said, that's right. She made the deal. She made the sale. When people say that's right, they step to you. We're still trying to figure out exactly everything that it is. It's a combination of you've triggered an epiphany. What you've just said is totally and completely true in their version, in their view. And then also, they connect and they're telling you they feel bonded to you. You know, the Covey advice, seek first to understand. Well, how do you know you understand them? When they look at you and they say, that's right. And take the approach of flexibility, which is never be so sure of what you want that you wouldn't take something better. And this is how you get something better. Because they will, and even if you don't make the deal, they're just like Sabaya, where they respect you, they have no problem continuing to deal with you, which also means that they're not saying bad things about you in your industry. So take the subtle change. I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to stop getting people to say yes. That is going to be the hardest thing that you try to do because everybody around you does it and reinforces it. But start getting some that's right, and you'll find this is from a woman who was a consultant, and she was ready to give in on price, and instead and meet in the middle, never split the difference. And instead of giving in, the moment before she gave in, she got a that's right out of her counterpart. She got her price. So what I'd like to leave you with is the following. You remember I said before the Will Smith and the Tommy Lee Jones thing, right? So actually, they worked for me. They were the intergalactic kidnapping negotiators, and they worked as part of I was in a crisis negotiation with the FBI, and those guys were a subset of where I was in a critical incident response group. And so we got their technology, and you remember the little red flashy thing? All right, so we got them integrated into our phones. So what I want everybody to do is to look up here. All right. When you get home tonight, I want you to hug your significant other, tell him or her that you love them. If you have kids, hug your kids, tell them you love them. Call your mom, tell her you're sorry. And then tell everybody you talk to that you were at this fantastic conference at USC, the Supply Chain Summit, and you heard the best speaker you ever heard, and his name was Voss, and they should buy his book. All right, thank you.